And I will admit one more person. Joe, if you just hang on a few minutes, just in case we get a few more, and I'm going to start. I'm going to start by telling you a sort of a little bit about my story, because I have been in this business, a sort of guru business, for about 20 years now, and I did that because I came back to live in Ireland. I've lived in Los Angeles and London. I've had a pretty active life, I have to say. And I came back to Ireland with 2 small children, and I had to make a living. I had to start again, basically. And I began to see that the bookshelves were all the bookshops were heaving with personal development books. So I thought, this is a very interesting industry. People are obviously getting very interested in it. And also I had lived in California, so I was very much in touch with that whole era and that thought process, if you like. So I started inviting people like Deepak Chopra. Deepak Chopra was one of my first big ones, and started doing these events, live events. Probably my biggest speaker was Eckhart Tolle, who we had about, well, at one point we had 5,000 people in the RDS. I mean, I think maybe some of you were at that. Marianne, yeah, okay. And Deepak, we had, big crowds for that as well. More recently, it's been quieter. But I've been doing a lot of Zoom stuff over COVID, and much smaller events as well. But generally, I really love the messages that I hear from these people, because they're very life affirming and fun, and you forget about them when you go about your daily life. You get sort of caught up in the freneticness of daily life. So it's great to remind yourself that these messages are out there, and some people really do live them. I don't live them, but I do love them when I hear them. I mean, I should live them more. So hi, Fiona, how are you? So I'm just going to share the screen now with my slideshow, and hopefully you'll be able to see this. Everybody can see that. And this is basically the beginning. Wait a minute, I'm actually starting on a third one, so we'll just start at the beginning here. These are the people that I've actually hosted, or know of, or have met personally. Deepak Chopra, Eckhart Tolle, Marianne Williamson, Caroline Myss, Bruce Lipton, David G., John Kabat-Zinn, Byron Katie, Neil Donald Walsh, Richard Bandler, Rupert Sheldrake, Tony Buzan, Robert Fisk, Tony Humphreys, many, many more actually. But also there's lots of good advice from people who I've read about and I haven't necessarily met. And there are some people that are not on this list who didn't make the list. I don't know if any of you were at the Gary Reynard talk, but he was a bit of a disaster because he turned up drunk on the day. I had to send a taxi to his hotel and get him out of the bar, basically. But the funny thing about it was that he managed to get him to the venue. And I said to people, and he stood up there, he sat in front of the stage making no sense whatsoever. So I stood up and I said, look, I'm very sorry, Gary's not well. You all get your money back. And somebody said, has he had drink taken? And I said, yes, he has. So that was Gary. But funny enough, there were some people who stayed until the end, and they said they'd learned, and I gave them all their money back anyway. But some people stayed and they said they learned about forgiveness. So there you are. We can always learn things about these events or whatever we do. There's always a learning process, and forgiveness is important, as I will say in a minute. All great spiritual teachers recommend quiet time to connect with the spirit. Call it God, Muhammad, Buddha, the universe, universal consciousness, the witness, whatever you want to call it, or just the being inside you. They all talk about meditation and mindfulness. And I love this quote from Pierre de Chardin. We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And I love that. It's focusing on the spiritual. So I would, if you can get that into your being and think of yourself as a spiritual being having a human experience, it really does take away a lot of anxiety and everything. It really does. And RPM is David G's talk. David G is a wonderful, he's a follower of Deepak Chopra. He talks about rise, key, meditate, because that's when you can get your meditation in early in the morning. And he says, just get up and get your meditation done for the day. So get out of bed, go to the bathroom, and then meditate. And I actually think that meditation is lovely. When I do it, I really enjoy doing it, and you get great peace from it. So I'm going to just do a quick meditation now with you. You can, there's a chant, so hum, which means I am, which you can do to yourself if you want to do it while you're meditating. I think chanting can be very useful. Wayne Dyer has a wonderful voice, and I used to listen to his meditation tapes, and he used to go and that was so soothing. But this is quite soothing as well. So hum, which means I am, and you can chant it to yourself in your brain. It helps you get rid of those thoughts, because people will always say, I've got all these thoughts that disturb my meditation. The other tip from David G is that if you think of the infinity sign when you meditate, so follow the infinity sign when you meditate. And so basically you focus on your breath, you breathe in and then long breath out, and focus on the infinity sign. So let's just try that just for a minute. If you close your eyes and breathe in and long breath out, and just be very quiet for a minute or two, and think about that infinity sign going round and round, and see if you can just still your mind. Now, if you can do that like for 5 minutes every day, it really does help. It really sets you up for the day, and gets you in that frame that you're peaceful, you're not frenetic. I try and do it every day, but I don't succeed. I go swimming instead with Fiona. Marianne Williamson said, because people said in one of her talks, they said, I can't find time to meditate, don't have time. I'm getting the kids ready for school. It's a frantic time in the morning. We just, there's no way I could have time to meditate. She said, well, include your children in your little practice, in your practice. It only has to be a few minutes, but you have a candle somewhere in a corner, somewhere that is just your space. And you say to your children, this is mummy's or daddy's time, our quiet time to connect with our spirit, to be quiet, to talk to God, whatever you want to say. And they will often just join in. And it's very good for them to have this practice. They can be quiet in the beginning of the morning as well. And it's an excellent practice for them. And of course, a lot of schools nowadays do have mindfulness and mindfulness practice between lessons, and sort of shutting down between lessons, which is a wonderful thing. I think more schools should do it, because it's very important to get into that space. If you can get your kids to do it, do it. And here I'm mentioning epiphanies. Eckhart Tolle and Byron Katie and a lot of spiritual teachers had epiphanies. They were in a state where they were very depressed, suicidal. They'd lost their way in the world. Eckhart was he was 26. He was studying in London at the University of London. And he just was at the end of his tether, and he decided that he was going to commit suicide. He called out in the night, I can't live with myself anymore. And then it occurred to him that who was he actually talking about? Who was he? There was somebody else there that was saying, I cannot live with myself. And this was a huge revelation to him. His higher consciousness was there, his witness, if you like. And this gave him great joy. This thought gave him great joy. He went to sleep that night. And the next day he woke up with this great joy. It was like a total epiphany. He gave up everything. He gave up his friends, his apartment, his possessions. He went to sit on a park bench. And he did this sitting on the park bench for several years, talking to anybody that came along. And he had such joy. People listened to him. He was somebody who was so joyful, and he would talk to people, and they were very inspired by him. And that's when he wrote the book, The Power of Now. And of course, Oprah Winfrey got a hold of that, and the rest is history. Now he's huge. But he is, I've done several events with Eckhart, and he does live his talk. He walks his talk. He's a very quiet man, but when he goes into a room and he's got an audience of, let's say, 5,000 people, the whole audience quiet. You can't hear a sound. It's just amazing. And then he'll giggle. And he just brings you in with him. And he's quite extraordinary. It's a great experience. And that was all through that epiphany when he was 26. Byron Katie was similar. She was down and out. She was an alcoholic living in a squat. She felt that she wanted to commit suicide. She did have children, but she was at the end of her tether. And she suddenly had this realization, we are not our thoughts. And of course, particularly, we are not our bad thoughts or us blaming thoughts. And so she started the process of the work. So we can all change. We can all have these epiphanies and move to the next stage. A lot of these great spiritual speakers talk about that particular time. And I love this cartoon. What are you doing? I'm using my device. What is your device? My device is the sky. Does your device have many applications? Yes, it has sun, moon, clouds, and birds. And do you have to recharge your device very often? I don't ever have to recharge my device. It recharges me. So that's all about mindfulness and living in the present and really appreciating every little thing around you. Try and get into that space. And I must say, I love walking on the beach and looking at the sea. Occasionally I will get into it, but it's a bit cold nowadays. But it's a wonderful, innovating, life-affirming thing. And if you just look at what's around you, we spend a lot of our lives being very blinkered. But this is like mindfulness practice. And mindfulness is basically whatever you're doing it with focus. If you're cleaning your teeth, be in that moment when you're cleaning your teeth. Really feel the toothbrush and the toothpaste and the taste, and use all your senses. Your smell, your eyes, your hearing, your taste. Use all your senses. Do them one by one, or be very conscious of the use of your senses. And again, it'll get you to that space, which is much more Zen-like and less frenetic. I think it's very good advice. We all hear about gratitude and gratefulness. This guy is David Stendhal Rast, who's written a lot about gratefulness. He's pretty amazing. I'll just come to him in a minute. But in the meantime, I want you to all feel lucky, because we are incredibly lucky to be here in the first place. There's a 1 in 400 million chance that we're here at all. In other words, 399,999, whatever it is, didn't make it. And we did. And so we're really lucky to be here. I know some people have very tough challenges in life, but if they can just tweak that feeling of feeling lucky and embracing that feeling of being lucky, it really will make a difference. And just remember that. We're here, 1 in a 400 million chance that we're here at all. David Stendhal Rice says, gratitude is the key to joy. Joy comes from gratitude, not the other way around. He is the author of Gratefulness, the Heart of Prayer. And he says, you can't be grateful for everything, but you can be grateful at every moment, because even if something is given to you for which you cannot be grateful, you can be grateful for the opportunity it gives you. But you can be grateful. He said it's not a gift. It's not grateful is not a gift. And you can't be grateful if you're in a war or a terrible situation. But there are many things that you can be grateful for. Focus on that. And in every moment you can practice gratefulness. You can be grateful. I mean, I think if you think about it, there are so many reasons to be grateful, and we mustn't think that other people have better lives than us. I mean, I like the saying that life is a gift. If we threw all our problems in a pile and saw everyone else's, we'd quickly grab ours back, I mean, really, we are pretty lucky, really. Now, David he says, grateful eyes look at whatever it be as if you have never seen it before. So again, that comes back to being present, seeing things in a mindful way, and being grateful for that. And fear is optional. Trust life. Brené Brown does this practice with her kids. I love Brené Brown. I recommend her books if you haven't read them. She's a great speaker. She's a great writer. She does a practice with her kids that she started a practice of around the dinner table of saying what you were grateful for each day. And she said that she learned things from her kids that she didn't know before. For example, if they didn't want to talk about stuff that was going on, they would come out with this in a very positive way around the table. For example, I'm grateful I don't have to share a room with my sister anymore. So she realized that she was having, the kids, the sisters were fighting, having problems with each other. So she said it's a fantastic exercise to do with your kids around the dinner table. Just one thing you say every day around the dinner, you say, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that. It could be anything. It could be grateful for the dog. It could be grateful for the food I have on the table. But she says when one evening they were rushing out to something and they had to go be somewhere, and the kids, and they didn't have time, and the kids said, oh, we've got to do our gratitude practice, we've got to do it, and so they really missed it. So that's a good example of how you can incorporate that into into family life. Very positive stuff. I love Wayne Dyer. And he talks about the power of intention. He's now not with us anymore. But the power of intention, he says, you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. And I think that's very important. There's a kind of a long sentence here, but this is during meditation, by using your imagination and practicing the art of assuming the feeling of your wishes being fulfilled, and steadfastly refusing to allow any evidence of the outer world to distract you from your intentions, you will discover that you, by virtue of your spiritual awareness, possess the ability to become the person you are destined to be. And I think that's lovely. So put your intention in to where you want to be, and you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. So you become that person, and then you attract goodness, love, whatever you want. I think, and he was a great example of that, because he would, on his talks, he would just talk off the cuff. He would talk so spontaneously, never had notes or anything. And he was just such a loving person. He was extraordinary. And don't sweat the small stuff. He said, Richard Carlson, who wrote a book called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, wrote to Wayne Dyer when he was writing this book, and he said, look, I've used some of your content in my book and I didn't get your accreditation for it. I'm really sorry, and I feel terrible. They published the book without me being able to accredit you. I promise you I'm going to get the publishers to take that out and publish it again, take that bit out. And Wayne Dyer wrote back to him and said, listen, Richard, don't sweat the small stuff. It's okay. It's all, and secondly, it's all small stuff. So that was the title of his book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. It's all small stuff. And I love that sentence. But it just shows you the kind of guy that Wayne was. He was, and Richard Carlson went on to say, don't lose touch with the magic and beauty of life. Don't be so frenetic, in other words. So good messages, all these.
That was a brilliant event, actually, that you organised, Jane, with Wayne Dyer. I
Yeah,
remember
wasn't he lovely?
his daughter sang. Do you
We
remember?
miss him terribly. Yeah.
Remember his daughter sang a beautiful song at it.
Yeah. I know. I just think he was such a lovely guy, but he's very much present. I mean, his family are still putting out talks, and there's you kind of feel that he's very much present still. I love this comment, this from Michelle Obama: when they go low, we go high, because she really had a terrible time when she was the first Black first lady, and the racism in America was absolutely appalling. Well, I suppose it's appalling in many parts of the world. But I mean, they used to call her a monkey and all sorts of horrible things. And she said, when they go low, we go high. Don't get tied up in other people's opinions. I think that's a wonderful thing. When they go low, we go high. I think Meghan Markle could probably learn something from that. And of course, the royal family are practicing that. They're not commenting, are they? But I guess they might. They might yet. We don't know. And the curse of social media, I have to mention this because there's so much hate speech around, and social media makes it so easy to hate somebody and to put out hateful stuff. Dale Carnegie's trope, any fool can criticize, condemn, or complain, is absolutely right. I mean, I'm sure when I was a kid and at school and everything, I was a terrible gossip, and I would do that. I'm sure I'd say, oh, well, Mary does this, or I don't like her because of that. We all did it. We all did it at school. It's a terrible thing, gossip. But now gossip is universal. Everybody does it, and they do it on social media, and it's far more dangerous because it can actually cause people to go to the end, to take their own lives. Young people, I think there's more suicides amongst young people than ever because they get bullied by social media. And if only people would think before they put this stuff down. Gary Player, I love what he says here. He says, some people think their own candle burns brighter when they snuff out other people's candles. Well, isn't that the perfect way of saying, people on Facebook or whatever it is, Snapchat, it makes them feel good to speak badly of somebody else. That's terrible. We've got to teach our kids and say to ourselves, never criticize, condemn, or complain. It's a great mantra. It's a great mantra. And this little poem, be careful of the words you speak. Keep them soft and sweet, because you'll never know from day to day which ones you'll have to eat. Great. I love that. Forgiveness. Forgive everyone, everything. Simple. Don't hold on to the past. I had a friend who was abandoned. Well, her husband went off with somebody else when she had small children. She had 3 small children, which was very, very tough for her, awful. But, that was 30 years ago. And she's still holding on to that. And she still has not made peace with the father of her children. And I think that's very sad. You can't hold on to the past. There's an Indian saying, this is the American Indian, say that there are 2 wolves inside us. There's a good wolf and a bad wolf, and you have to feed them. And which one do you want to feed? So if you feed the bad wolf, you're feeding resentment and anger and lack of forgiveness and all this stuff that is very damaging to you, and that will grow. If you feed the good wolf, like with love and forgiveness and compassion, kindness, that will grow. So feed the good wolf, basically. Don't hold on to all that bad stuff. As Mark Twain said, forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. Isn't that lovely? I love that. The violet, the fragrance of the violet. And the other, if you think about it, it's never too late to have a happy childhood. The second one is up to you. So don't hold on to the past. Just don't. Detachment. I mean, again, a lot of these speakers will say detachment's very important. Don't hold on to stuff. Put out your intentions, but then just let them go. Deepak is very big on this. He says uncertainty is essential. Allow others to be who they are and allow solutions to emerge. Uncertainty is your path to freedom, he says. And trust that they allow solution to emerge and trust that they will. And then let go of the outcome. There was a marshmallow experiment about delayed gratification. You probably have all heard of it. 1972, about little children being given, they were between 3 and 6, I think, about 50 children in the class, and they were each given a marshmallow, and they were told, don't eat that marshmallow, because if you don't eat that marshmallow now, when I will leave the classroom, and when I come back, if you don't eat it, I will give you another marshmallow. So this experiment was quite interesting because about half the children ate their marshmallows, but some of them, they managed to distract themselves from the marshmallow on their desk and didn't eat it. And so when the teacher came back, he rewarded those. And they did a follow-up to say that the people who allowed that delayed gratification, in other words, detachment really, had better outcomes in life. They were more successful in life, whereas those that wanted the instant gratification often had problems with alcohol abuse or drug abuse, etc. So it's detachment, it's detaching from the outcome. It's putting it out there, but detaching from the outcome. And I think we live in a very greedy society nowadays, and it's very hard to detach because everybody wants everything. Oh yeah, I love John Lennon's quote, life is something that happens when you're busy making other plans. And that's another way of saying, let go. Life is something that happens when you're busy making other plans. Yeah, life is happening anyway. You can observe it. And yeah, will this matter a year from now? What you're going through now, the agony you're going through now, or the problems you're going through now, you won't even remember what they are next year. It will be gone. I mean, I think I can't even remember what I was fussed about last year. So that's another one. And then don't sweat the small stuff. I've been through that already. Yeah, Eckhart Tolle, I mean, he tells this story of the ring, and it's in a New Earth. And I like this story because it's about recognizing the ego and not getting too attached to the ego, letting your ego go. Don't let your ego speak too much. And the story of the ring was there was a school teacher. She was a friend, and he was visiting her. She was a school teacher in her mid-40s, and she had terminal cancer. She didn't have very long to live. And one day when he went to see her, she was in a terrible state. She was really upset and in a complete flap because her diamond ring had disappeared. And she said she was sure that the woman who cared for her had stolen this ring. And how could she do that to her? How could she be so heartless? And Eckhart said, well, are you sure does this really matter? And she says, this is my grandmother's ring. It's very important to me. I used to wear it every day, and I can't now because my hands are swollen, but it's terribly important. So he said, look, I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and I really want you to think about these 3 questions and pause before you answer. Do you realize that you have to let go of this ring, perhaps quite soon? Will you become less when you let go of it? And has who you are become diminished by the loss? Has who you are become diminished by the loss of this ring? And that, when she thought about it, she suddenly felt that she was not diminished by the loss, her I amness. And this is what we all have to get in touch with, our I amness. Because I amness, it just overtakes everything. It's more important than any ego object, any attachment. If you can get in touch with your I amness through meditation or through these sort of exercises, nothing will bother you. She says, I'm in touch. She felt that joy of being And you can only feel that when you let go of the ego, because the ego seeks to attach to things. It's me, my, I, or mine. And you have to let go of the ego. So what happened to this lady was she had a bit of a spiritual epiphany, and the last few months of her life were very happy. She was very, very peaceful. And when she did die, in fact, they actually did find the ring in the medicine cabinet in the bathroom, but whether it was put back there or not didn't matter, because she had learned to leave this world in peace, and she learned about the ego. And I think that's just a very good story about letting go of ego. And that's in that story is in Eckhart's book, The New Earth, which actually I think is more readable than The Power of Now. I like The New Earth. I think it's well worth reading. Rule number 6. Well, yeah. Rule number 6 is a funny story. It's Benjamin Zander. I'll stop sharing for a minute so I can see everybody. Oh, hi. Now I can see everybody. That's good. It's Benjamin Zander of the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra tells this story, and he loves this story, but I happen to love it too. It's he tells the story of the two visiting prime ministers, and the resident prime minister and the visiting prime minister, who are having a meeting. And while they're in their meeting, this man interrupts them, but goes into the room, and he's in a terrible flap, and he's in a terrible state. And the resident prime minister said, "Tom, remember rule number 6. So he says, oh yeah, okay, sorry. And he calms down immediately and leaves the room. And then a few minutes later, a woman comes into the room, hair flying, totally hysterical, and is in a terrible state. And the resident prime minister says, "Mary, remember rule number 6. And she says, oh yeah, she immediately calms down and she leaves the room. When this happens a third time, the visiting prime minister turns to him and said, "Look, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I can't believe what is this rule number 6? And the resident prime minister says, "Don't take yourself so seriously." And the prime minister said, "Well, that's a good rule. What are the other ones?" And he said, "There are no other rules." And that is a good story, because I do actually think we do take ourselves very seriously at times. And I think if we can just lighten up, it's a lightening up process. Don't take yourself so goddamn seriously. So we're going back to this. No one else does. No one else takes you so seriously. But cherish yourself, of course. That doesn't mean you don't look after yourself, but just don't take yourself seriously. Challenge yourself. Yes, we all know this. All the gurus say, try something new, learn a new skill, go and have a swim in the sea, learn a new language. It's never too late. I mean, I'm actually 70 now, and I can't believe it. It just went so fast. But I just like to challenge myself in little ways, whether it's word games or new things, doing different things, going different places. I just think we should keep going until we don't. And I know a lot of people do very extreme things, extreme sports, and they challenge themselves that way. You don't have to do that, but they get huge highs out of that. And why not? I mean, I just think we mustn't get too complacent in life. And I love this cartoon. What fits your busy schedule better, exercising 1 hour a day or being dead 24 hours a day? Well, we should exercise, yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be extreme exercise, but just keep yourself healthy. And it's interesting. I mean, you know, I've heard a lot from, I mean, obviously personal trainers are very big now, and that's fantastic if people can do that. But I did a talk recently with Bruce Lipton on epigenetics. And he's, you know, of the opinion that our mind is very much a part of our health. It's not positive thinking, but it's kind of the placebo effect. It's very strong. If you feel that you're healthy and well, and you fill yourself with goodwill and love, and you feed that wolf, in other words, your body will respond. Your body will respond to that. He says, you're not your genes necessarily. Your body will react to, if you feel you're going to be sick, if you feel you're going to die, or if you feel you are dying, you will. But the placebo effect, which is you feel you're going to get better, and your body will harness that. And he has proven that cells actually can repair themselves by this thought process. He's done various experiments. He's a cell biologist. He's done various experiments with cells. So yeah, keep positive, and it will definitely improve your health. Life is short. Embracing death. This is Spike Milligan, I think. I told you why I was sick. But if you embrace death, and if you go back to that original thought from Desjardins saying we are spiritual beings having a human experience, well, we'll go on anyway. So embrace death, and we won't die. We won't ever die. And I think people who've had near-death experiences really know how to live life to the full. I don't know if you heard Ryan Tubridy about a week ago interviewing Sarah de la Garde. She was in September, she had a very bad accident. She had actually just come back from climbing Kilimanjaro, where she had trained for that, and 2 weeks later she was back in London going to work, and she fell asleep on the tube as she was going to Camden, and the train went to the end of the line, and so she got off the train when she woke up, dashed across to the other side of the platform, and it was slippery, and she fell between the tube and the train and the platform, and the tube took off and ran over her arm and her leg. And nobody heard her. She said she was crying out. People had their ear pods on, they couldn't hear her. People are just very shut down in that way now. And also probably it wasn't that crowded because it was the end of the line. Anyway, she lay there for 15 minutes. She couldn't use her phone because she'd broken her nose and the phone didn't recognize her face. And she was incredibly calm telling this story. And she said her training, her breathing for Kilimanjaro helped her survive because she knew how to breathe. She knew how to keep calm. And she was there for about 15 minutes when another train came. This one didn't hit her, but it came very close. And she was shouting out and screaming, etc. And eventually somebody heard her and they went down and they took her off, they ministered to her on the track and managed to get her up. And she lost her arm and her leg below the knee. But she's incredibly positive. What an amazing woman, what an amazing story. But she says she really now appreciates life so much, every moment. She's got 2 daughters. She's so alive. She is having a near-death experience taught her how to be alive. And I've heard a lot of people say this. The Andes plane crash in 1972 with Nando Parrado, wrote a book about the blessing, the miracle of the Andes. You might remember that the plane crashed into the high Andes and there was a football team on it. There were 39 survived, but they all started dying because there was nothing to eat and nothing to survive on. And it was very high and very rough, very snowbound and everything. They couldn't get out. And they made a pact between them that if they died, that the survivors could eat them, i.e. cannibalism. And so, which was kind of a spiritual thing, really. So 16 survivors survived on basically eating the flesh of those that had died. But 2 of them managed to do an incredible trek to get help, which they did. And these 16 people survived. And every year they meet up, and now they're a huge family. They've all got children, there's huge extended families, and they embrace life. And they are so grateful to be alive, and they live really fully. So yeah, I do think that's, if we can remember those examples, embrace death. In the Hoffman method I don't know if anybody else did the Hoffman method ever, but that's, you actually go to your own funeral in the Hoffman method. You sort of experience your own funeral, which is a bit daunting. I did it, but it's a good way of seeing, look, you're going to be dead one day, so live now. Life is short. Live as much as you can now, and appreciate as much as you can, and live mindfully, whatever it is. I mean, whatever it is that you can do. And on the same sort of track, Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Have you read this book? I mean, it is incredible. Yeah. It is just an incredible book. He was in 3 concentration camps, and he said he saw that the men who had the will to live survived. The men who didn't lose their sense of purpose and meaning were able to survive. The ones who shared their last piece of bread with somebody else, they had a purpose and a meaning. The meaning of life is the meaning you choose to give it. And what he says, and I'll quote now what he says, what man actually needs is not a tensionless state, i.e. not a totally happy state, but rather striving and struggling for some goal worthy of him. What he needs is not the discharge of tension at any cost, but the call of potential meaning waiting to be fulfilled. So we all, we can't all live on handouts all the time. We need a goal. We need meaning in life, and whatever that is. I mean, I find now that my meaning is I've got a grandchild, so that's my meaning. And actually, a lot of people my age will say they found new meaning in life with their grandchildren. But you've got to have a meaning in life. You've got to have a raison d'etre, if you like. And he speaks about it. He developed logotherapy. I mean, it's just an incredible book. I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. Happiness is a choice. Whenever I feel down, I play that song, Don't Worry, Be Happy. And be childish. No one is in charge of your happiness but you. It's up to you. It's completely up to you to be happy. People have different experiences. 2 people will go through the same experience. They'll go through the same village, for example, totally strange village. And the first person might come out and say they were very unfriendly. I couldn't get anything to eat. I found that I couldn't talk to anybody. It was awful, and blah. The second person will go through and say, I had an amazing experience. They gave me food, they gave me shelter, because of their attitudes. It's very much down to attitude, and choose your attitude. That is incredibly powerful. This is my tips to live by, which there are many. Meditate. This is what I've already said. Practice gratitude. Come from love, and love will come to you. Forgive everyone, everything. No one is in charge of your happiness but you. Rule number 6, don't take yourself seriously. Challenge yourself. It's never too late to have a happy childhood. The second one is up to you. Life is short. Don't waste time hating anyone or holding resentment. Feel lucky. If we threw our problems in a pile and saw everyone else's, we'd grab ours back. And no matter how you feel, get up, dress up, and show up. I love that, no matter how you feel. And then, of course, never criticize, condemn, or complain. I love that one. That's really good. So I've got a poem here by Spike Milligan, which I'll just show you, because I think this is a good one, because people in the awful circumstances smile. If you go to India, everybody's smiling. They come from slums and they smile. They know how to smile. And this is fantastic, Spike Milligan. Smiling is infectious. You catch it like the flu. When someone smiled at me today, I started smiling too. I passed around the corner and someone saw my grin. When he smiled, I realized I'd passed it on to him. I thought about that smile when I realized its worth. A single smile just like mine could travel round the earth. So if you feel a smile begin, don't leave it undetected. Let's start an epidemic quick and get the world infected. So smile, everybody. I just love that poem. It's so life affirming. So I can't see anybody's faces except for Fiona and Marianne, but that's basically my experience with what I've learnt from these people. And it's great, even if you just get one thing from this little presentation today, even if you just get one thing, I hope it's been worth your while joining me. And if anybody wants to say anything, I would love to hear from you.
Thank you, Jane. Really enjoyed that. It's Deirdre. Always good to be reminded.
Good, Deirdre. Yeah, I mean, I just think as I said, we need reminding of all these things. Hi.
Listen, thank you very much. That was really great, Jane. Really enjoyed it.
Well, I hope
really,
you got something out of it. I mean,
yeah,
I like to
wise.
do it every now and again to remind me of these things, because we all need a constant reminding that actually life is not that serious, and to live lightly. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, great, marvelous. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Jane. That was lovely. It's lovely to hear you speaking.
Thank you,
That's
Fiona.
great.
I'll see
Yeah,
you.
really great.
Fiona is a swimmer
that.
in the winter.
Thanks very much. That was great.
Thank you very much, Niall.
Mm.
And Estelle, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jane. Thank you.
And thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for
Yeah.
joining me. And I'll send the recording out
Thank you.
so you can
Lovely.
refresh yourselves.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's super.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very
Really
much.
good.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank
Jane.
you.
Bye.
Jane.
Thanks, everyone. Happy New Year.
Happy New
Bye.
Year,
Bye.
Jane.
Thank you.